fellow students of AES in grade 4. Today our science lesson is about what are potential and kinetic energy. So, the instructions for this lesson: watch the video in the online task slide and complete the questions in the areas provided. Read the summary written on each slide. There are videos on slides number 6, 7, and 16. Watch them please and complete any questions on any slides in the areas provided. And finally, do the online assessment on Edmodo after completing the lesson. So, what are potential and kinetic energy? By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify potential energy and its types. You will be able to identify kinetic energy, use evidence to explain the effect of the energy an object has on its speed. You will be able to investigate how energy can change forms and identify some factors that may affect energy. So, this picture is found on your book in page 505. What form of energy do you think this bike has? Please type your answer, and don't forget that this bike is moving. So, now for the online task, you can watch the video found in this link here. And after you watch the video, please find the answer to the following questions. What is kinetic energy? What is potential energy? And what happens to kinetic energy as a body stops moving? And what happens to potential energy as the object's distance from the ground increases? So what is potential energy? You can watch the video in the link down here. It will explain to you in detail. Now, potential energy is stored energy. An object can store energy as a result of its position. We will look at that in more details. There are three types of potential energy, including gravitational potential energy, elastic potential energy, and chemical potential energy. So, in relation to the potential energy is stored energy, let's look at the height of these two different balls. One is held way higher above the ground and one is held closer to the ground. So, which ball do you think will have more potential energy? If you're thinking the one higher above the ground, you're completely right, because the higher the object is, the more potential and stored energy it has. So, the only thing you have to know is what type of potential energy is stored in this ball. Please type your answer below. Now, the first type we talked about is gravitational potential energy. Now, this is energy stored as a result of the object's gravitational attraction to Earth. It depends on mass and height to which it is raised. Let's investigate what that means together. So, here, circle the ball with the more potential energy and please explain your answer in the box. The second type of potential energy is elastic potential energy. It is energy that is stored in elastic materials as the result of their stretching or compressing. For example, we have rubber bands, the bungee cords, think of bungee jumping, trampolines, and the springs and wind-up toys. Now, the amount of potential energy depends on the object's stretching and compressing. So, look at these two different springs. One has more spaces and one is tightly compressed. So, which spring do you think has more elastic potential energy? Please type your answer. The third type of potential energy is chemical potential energy. It is energy that can be released by a chemical change. Think of our food when we talked about how our food changes into chemical energy inside our bodies to give us energy for the day. Now, for example, petroleum. Can our cars work without petroleum? Not all cars work without petroleum. So, in order to keep your car moving, you need to keep adding petroleum, and that would give it chemical energy to move. What happens as wood burns? Please type your answer below. Chemical potential energy is in the wood is released as heat. Now also sometimes we use fire to give us some light. So in your book you will find this question on page 509. You write an example of a source of chemical energy that you saw this week. The second type of energy we'll talk about is the kinetic energy. Watch the video in the link below. Now, we know that kinetic energy is the energy of motion. However, not all moving objects have the same amount of kinetic energy. We have two factors that affect kinetic energy, which is speed and mass. So, for example, the faster objects have more kinetic energy than slower objects. So, for example, if a car is going fast, then it has more kinetic energy than a car that is moving slowly. Alright, so let's look at this question together. Which ball do you think will have more kinetic energy, a heavy ball or a less heavy ball? And again, which vehicle do you think has less kinetic energy, the truck traveling at 70 kilometers per hour or the car traveling at 120 kilometers per hour? Okay, so in your book on page 510 you will find this question that says, how does speed affect energy? Underline the sentences that helped you answer these questions. You will find the paragraph right here. Just place lines under the answer that you think is correct. Alright, the other factor that we talked about is mass. Objects with more mass have more kinetic energy. So the heavier the moving object, the more kinetic energy it has. So based on this picture, also in your book on page 511, which rock do you think has more kinetic energy? Please type your answer. The large or the small rock? On page 511 as well, you will find a question that says, list two things that affect kinetic energy of an object. Now we discussed this in the previous slides. Please write these two factors. Alright, so in addition to potential and kinetic energy, potential can change to kinetic energy and vice versa. So for example, let's look at this picture together. There's a bicyclist going up the hill and then going down the hill again. So when the bicycle has more kinetic energy, it will move faster than when it moves slower. And kinetic energy changes to potential energy as the bike rises to the top of the hill. So the bicycle here is going up the hill and there's a lot of kinetic energy going here, going up, and then he goes to the top of the hill where he stops. Now this is the point where the kinetic energy changes to potential energy because the bicyclist will stop. However, as he continues going down the hill, this potential energy will be changed into kinetic energy. Now, if you add the kinetic energy, the potential energy the bicyclists have, you will get a type of energy called mechanical energy. Alright, so based on the following information, how does the cyclist get energy to ride the bicycle? You can type your answer here. And how can the cyclist increase the kinetic energy of the bicycle? Also, please type your answer here. Okay, so on page 512, you have a question that's asking you, first, the bicyclist climbs to the top of the hill and the kinetic energy changes to potential energy. What will happen next? Alright, on page 513, you have a picture that says, look at the picture and label the positions where the bicycle has the greatest and the least potential energy. So just place a text box where you think the bicyclist has the least or the most potential energy. Thank you for watching and have a great day and stay safe.